Well, listen, this is going to be a real treat. We've got not just a former episode guest, but a friend of Kev Talks, and she's got some exciting news, and we're going to let her tell us the exciting news.
So my exciting news is that I have written a book.
Yeah.
The title is Plan a Shit Day.
And
Now, there's another chapter in there about gratitude, saying, setting boundaries and gratitude. And setting the boundaries is really all about how you value yourself in a certain aspect of your life. And we can't really expect anybody else to respect our time if we don't respect our time. How can I ask you to respect my time if I don't respect my time? So it's really important to start appreciating yourself. Appreciation literally means increasing in value. So when you learn to value yourself more, when you learn to value your own time more, it becomes very natural to set those boundaries. And then when someone asks you, when your me time is between 2 and 4 on a Thursday, and someone asks you, can I have a meeting with you at 3 o'clock? You will go, I'm very sorry, no, I'm not available. Which you would do if you had a dentist appointment, right? You would say, not available, and you'd move it. And we're letting other people decide how we're going to fill our days. Then we can't be the best, and we can't offer all that uniqueness that we have. And we're no good to the people around us.
Get your copy of Cass' book at Amazon.com today, or scan the QR code on the image above. This episode is proudly sponsored by the Port of New Orleans, advancing global connections and infrastructure to exceed the needs of tomorrow.
welcome to Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. I'm Kevin Parkerson.
And I'm Kevin Higgins. Together we bring you over 60 years in combined experience in global logistics.
In each episode, we'll dive into the latest industry trends, share practical tips, celebrate wins, and share stories from the logistics front lines, all while helping businesses optimize their logistics operations.
Hey, KP, what's going on?
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Kev Talks. It's another great week. We've got a great episode for you here, but we're here. The government shut down at this recording, but we are here. DC's taking time out. We are not. They're resting. We are not.
Because we got to keep talking about what they're doing and what's going on, because
Exactly.
Global logistics doesn't take a break, man. It keeps on trucking.
Well, it's definitely not taking a break, but it is, what is going on, Kevin, in global logistics is we continue to see, capacity being pulled out. Here it is. It is October. We've been talking about fall. It is legitimately, officially fall because my wife had me bring all the fall decorations down out of the attic to decorate. So it's official. But back to, really on the Trans-Pacific, pulling out capacity and trying the carrier industry trying to stop the slide of rates. Kind of what's your take on that right now?
It's, we've seen it time and time again, year over year over year. I hate to see capacity pulled out. I hate worse to see blank sailings. But I also understand that you have a business to manage, right? And you have ships that you've got to manage, and the volume's not there, then you've got to do it. And so it's hard for everybody. We've talked about all the tariffs and the uncertainty around tariffs and things like that. And I think this creates uncertainty in your supply chain, further uncertainty in your supply chain when you don't know if you're going to have the capacity, if you've counted on that. And it's new because back in the day we would see, I say back in the day, back when I was doing this, we'd see a little bit of that, but it's a lot more prevalent, a lot more common now. So I don't know. What are you hearing? What are your customers? What's your base saying?
Yeah. I mean, nothing says stability like, fewer ships and more
Yeah.
uncertainty, unfortunately, is the case. But that's kind of what is transpiring this fall. And I suspect, you and I will be talking about and have a similar theme
Yeah.
between now and, after the new year. Definitely, this is the time where the demand, the volume starts to decline naturally. And, the capacity play that the carriers are using is not a new play either. It's just how and when and how extreme is it going to be? And what does it actually do to the rate levels? And then what other conditions in the industry, will have a factor or will play into this? We won't talk a lot about it right now, but the tariff and the trade component to this is going to have a big play, a
And
big
that's ongoing.
portion
Yeah.
of it as well.
Yeah, I just think we were just talking a week or so ago about all the new builds that are still in the books, right? And here we are, a
They're not
couple of
going
weeks
away.
later. They still got new builds coming. They're still on the order books, but now here we are talking about blank sailings and capacity being pulled out of trades, and so it's incredibly interesting.
There's no such thing as peak season right now. It is
Yeah,
it is over. For the international side of the industry, the domestic side, and making sure the right cargo is in the right location and that it can be available for the end customer. That's the
yeah,
name of the game right now, but everyone's been preparing for that really all year long, as they always do. So, but from a peak standpoint, it's done. They're
yeah,
now, I think we mentioned it last week. It's planning for spring and all the patio and all the items that go along with that, believe
yeah,
it or not. And we're not even in Halloween yet, but that's how this industry works. It's typically about 6 months ahead in regards to shipping merchandise in order to have it in the supply chain. So,
yeah,
but we'll be here. We'll keep a pulse on it. We'll share as much as we can, with the listeners and audience. But you and I are here in Northwest Arkansas, and there's a couple of things going on in Northwest Arkansas specifically this week. We haven't talked about it before, and I'd love to get your take. I think you used to be possibly heavily involved in
oh
bikes,
gosh,
blues, and barbecue.
yeah,
That now it's kind of odd for me. It's based in Rogers, Arkansas, which is right down the road up
yeah,
north, up I-40. But typically, for many, many decades that I can
yeah.
recall, it was a Fayetteville event. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, almost. I think it was 19 or 20 years here in Fayetteville. I'm sad that it's not in Fayetteville because they had such a great location and it was growing. And there. I understand the reasons that they moved out, and I don't blame them one bit. But it is an incredible event. I remember. I think I went to I was either at the first or second one. Actually, Brian Most and I rode down to the first or
What
second
I
one. I
was
can't
thinking.
remember
Yeah.
which one.
Yeah.
And we did the parade of power on our bikes and rode all the way down College to Dixon Street and just took over Dixon
Are
Street.
there
And
pictures that prove that, dude? If there is, we got to get
yeah,
one.
there are. I've
We'll
got
check with
pictures.
most. There's got to be
Yeah,
one.
I've got pictures like we're young guys wearing do rags and riding our Harleys down there. It was a great time. But I I just read used to be, this was 5 years ago. I think the numbers are down a little bit, but still, I mean, they're coming back after COVID. But 400,000 people will come into town
Yeah.
this weekend. 400,000 additional people will come into town, and it's not. I mean, it's not just your average Joe. I mean, these are doctors and lawyers, and I mean, they're everybody coming in, and they'll have big events and big concerts and big food, and it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to stay out of Rogers because
I
it's
was
going to
going to
be
say that's where I was
crazy.
going next. Is
Yeah,
I think 399,000 of those are all on motorcycles,
yeah,
and
they are.
at one time. And what I try to do through the years, and then when I had children that were starting to drive, stay off the road during this time if you
And
can. Traffic is bad enough, but when you put 400,000 motorcycles in this area, you got to pay attention. You got to be a really good
It's
driver. So
absolutely. And that's what I will say is like the bikers are paying attention. I will say
yeah,
99% of them are paying attention and they're looking out because none of us ever wanted to get hurt. Right.
yeah,
So I just encourage everybody that's driving a four-wheeler that just do the same thing. Just watch out
yeah.
and keep your eyes open because they're watching for you, but just keep your eyes open for them.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so that event moved from, I'll call south, northwest Arkansas to
Yeah.
northwest Arkansas. There's a couple other events that are going on. I think you and I are discussing, our participation and attendance at a really big event, Northwest Arkansas Tech Summit,
Yeah.
that typically historically has been in the Bentonville Rogers area. And it is moving south to Fayetteville and the
Yeah.
Walton Arts Center, Theater Squared, that whole area. But that's an upcoming event in the latter part of October that we'll share a little bit more details about that in the coming weeks. But
Yeah.
it's another change. Northwest Arkansas continues to grow, and events like this can only be held in certain locations, and I think
Yep.
that's necessitated some of the movements.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's just, we're a region, right? So the Northwest Arkansas region and made up of a bunch of towns and cities. But the beautiful thing is that we can have it anywhere. And it's just, it's great. I'm looking forward to the Tech Summit to learn a little bit more. Last year was enlightening. So I'm really looking forward to this year as well.
No, that's a really good point. It's a regional, those are regional events. And to your point, if it were Bentonville Rogers, that's 15 minutes from my house. And if it's in Fayetteville, it's another 50 minutes, just a different
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So it's still available and still in the region.
Yeah. 100%. Hey, I want to back up a little bit and not talk so much work, but you sent me a note this morning that it was Wednesday and this picture of this beautiful grandbaby sitting on the couch. And I'm just like, man, and I told you earlier, she looks so much like her mom. I mean, how precious is that to get your day started with that sitting on your couch, man?
Yeah, dude, don't get me started. I could talk about my grandkids, all day long. There is nothing more precious to me than my two grandkids and one on the way. And yes, I will. If you get on my text list, you're going to get pictures of just random shots of my grandkids periodically through the course of the day. But yeah,
That's so awesome.
that was a great way for me to wake up to a picture. So I shared it as much as I could.
Yeah.
We
No,
might put that in the notes of this episode. I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly. It was a great way for me to get my day kicked off. I'm like, oh my gosh, she is so cute.
And she's
Yeah.
4 months old as of yesterday, I think, or the 29th, actually. So
I mean, she
4
just
months
looks so
already.
happy.
Yeah, she doesn't always look that way.
Well, yeah,
But she is a very, very happy child,
that's good.
which is the way, my oldest daughter was growing up. Dot.
Yeah.
You notice I said oldest.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I didn't say anything. Love them both.
Exactly.
Well, that's great. Well, what else is going on in your world outside of trade and ocean freight rates and capacity and all of that kind of stuff?
It's just embracing, this stage of life and entrepreneurship and empty nesting and grandparenting and Northwest Arkansas and just, it's a thriving area and trying to take advantage of everything and all the offerings that go on in Northwest Arkansas. There's so much good work and good people and fun activities in Northwest Arkansas, and just trying to, immerse yourself into that and enjoy life and have fun, podcasting and working and consulting and advising and friendships and family, all of that.
I love it. Same here. I'm excited for fall. It's kicking in. Nice cool morning sitting on the patio having some coffee and I do want to say I want to take us somewhere here for a second, but I got to say something. Like last week we talked about this. And I didn't get a single comment or nothing about whether or not I should keep growing my mustache or not. I thought we'd get some
I think
support
that's
out of
pretty
that.
telling.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
say
that says
keep
a
it,
lot.
dude.
Maybe that is the answer. So maybe that's the answer. It's like nobody
It definitely
commented.
keeps you out of the military. That's for sure.
I know. Well, I saw a fake post the other day. They're like, the military wants Gen X, get a $75,000 signing bonus, and I'm like, I'm in. I'll go. Let's go. I'll do 4 years. So, but it was not true. They wouldn't take me.
No, they
So
wouldn't.
it'd be good. No, at all. So my second thing is, you started reading any good books lately?
I have. Oh, we're going to go there. I
Yeah.
am in the process of reading a really good book. I have not
Yeah.
completed it, but I will. I do have it right here that I can plug, and I
Yeah.
love the title. When I found out the title, I said, "What?" But
Yeah,
it
exactly.
really it gets your attention. So
Yeah.
a dear friend of there you
Got
go,
mine.
a dear friend of ours has written a book, and I was just telling Kevin, it's like having a conversation with our dear friend Kath. It really, really
Yeah.
is. As I read it, I felt like I was just having a conversation, or listening to her share her wisdom. But the book is called Plan a Shit Day and Free Up Your Precious Time. It's a practical guide to creating true time freedom in your life permanently.
Yeah.
And I can't recommend this enough. I haven't read all of it, but I know Kath. I know her philosophy with work and life, and she's just put all of it into this book and is sharing it with
Yeah.
everybody. And I just love the philosophy.
Yeah, I do too. And she said something when we talked to her last week that was really impactful to me, is like, you can't manage time because time is what time is, right? It's just this construct, but you can manage your activities. And that really hit me pretty hard,
Right?
because I spend so much of put out so much effort trying to manage my time, and I realized, like, oh, you can't do it. And somebody else that we have was on the podcast, or we haven't actually had on the podcast yet, but Jen has always told me, she's like, time is a made up thing, right? So somebody made up time to get us through the day. And so, yeah, you can't manage that. The day is as long as the day is, but you can manage your activities inside of that, and you can manage how you do that. So, Kath, thanks for being a guest. Thanks for being a friend. And I look forward to really diving into everything in the book.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a portion of this episode. We'll have a segment dedicated to helping promote this book, and then we'll give more details on exactly where you can go to purchase this. Amazon is one location, obviously. It's where I got my copy at. But highly recommend exploring it. It's a paradigm, it's a construct of time that if you can embrace that, I'm living it in a way because of what I'm doing today, and how I balance my time. And as I mentioned earlier, embracing what's going on in Northwest Arkansas and friends and family. All of that is part of what I've learned from Kath. So highly recommend the book.
Yeah, same here. Well, I'd love to keep on talking, but we probably ought to get to the podcast. We've got a super
We should,
exciting.
but one second, right before you jump, I wanted to remind everybody that we're hitting. I'm gonna another shameless plug.
Forgot it. Let's do that.
We're gonna hit episode 50 with this episode.
Yep.
Which, Kevin, that's insane. That's crazy.
It is nuts.
What?
Yeah.
We were just sitting down in a coffee shop planning our first 10 episodes and ideas for all 10, which we didn't do any of them, I don't think. But maybe we did. But we're hitting episode 50, and we want to celebrate. There's a variety of ways that you can celebrate, but we're going to incorporate some merchandise. And if I can show this a little bit, here's a Kev Talks limited edition Kev Talks tumbler.
Yeah.
that is available through, I'll call drawing. So if you will follow and comment, review the podcast anywhere on social media, and we're on just about everything that you can be on. I think we're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok.
TikTok.
But if you will follow us and Kev Talks Real World Global Logistics Podcast, you can find us, follow and or comment. We'll put your name into a drawing, and then we will get you this state of the art, prime, premium, limited edition,
Yeah.
beautiful tumbler.
Yeah.
And no, it's not a Yeti, but it's a Yeti like.
Yeah. And one other thing on that is, follow and comment. And then if you tag somebody else
Yeah,
that you think would
thank you.
benefit from this podcast, you'll get an extra entry into the drawing.
Yep.
And then, so yeah, get it done. And, let's send out a tumbler for episode 50.
Yeah. So hopefully in the next, we'll probably do this for about a week. We'll see
Yeah.
how successful you are in getting additional followers and comments, and we'll do a drawing. Maybe we'll do it live. Maybe we'll do it on the next episode and
Oh yeah, that'd be
see
cool.
who gets the tumbler.
Yeah,
But yeah,
for sure.
we got a great episode. Let's get to that one, Higgins.
Let's do it. I'm super excited about this guest because I knew him when he was fresh out of college and went to work. So today we're joined by David Kearney, who's the president of the Kearney Companies and CEO of Precision Terminal Logistics. David's part of a 4-generation legacy in the New Orleans maritime community, with the Kearney Companies playing a role as a trusted 3PL and warehouse operator since 1996. Under his leadership, the company has expanded to operate over 1.2 million square feet of rail-served warehouse capacity and more than 50 acres of yard capacity in both New Orleans and Savannah.
So now, as CEO of Precision Terminal Logistics, which is a subsidiary of Anacostia that acquired the Kearney Companies back in 2021, David continues to shape the future of maritime logistics, from handling commodities like paper and agri bulk to driving innovation in warehousing, transloading, and trucking. He's widely recognized as part of the New Orleans Maritime Brain Trust. We're excited to dive into his insights on supply chains and port logistics and what it takes to carry forward a family legacy into the next era of global trade.
So let's get to David Kearney.
All right. Welcome, David. We're really excited to have you today. And I know there's a little bit of history with you and Higgins. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But so maybe we'll get some of those stories. But maybe share with our audience a little bit just about who David is and a little bit of your background and what you're doing today.
Sure. Thank you both for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. I coming out of college at SMU in Dallas, Texas, I joined Maersk Container Line, and it
Never
was
heard of them. Never heard of Merck.
I had heard of them and had a choice to make whether I went into finance or into logistics. And frankly, given 5 generations of Kearneys before me, the decision might have already been made. So
Yeah, you didn't
logistics
have a
is the
choice,
path I
David.
took. And it's been really something I love dearly, is the logistics industry, whether it's air, ocean, rail, barge, you name it. My head's turning trying to understand transportation in general. And so it's a passion. So in starting with Maersk, that's where my paths crossed with Kevin on implementing some new solutions to the industry at the time. Was a deconsolidation model that Maersk was rolling out on the West Coast, which had grown and spread to the East Coast in transloading containers for retail companies to help them with different concepts like speed to market or DC bypass, things like that. And so we went from there to APL with APL Logistics and a similar rollout that they were working on, and ultimately ended up back here in New Orleans, where I'm from, having partnered up with my father in a logistics company he had started in 1996. And really, since that time, we've been more focused on commodity logistics because that better fits the Port of New Orleans and the customer profile through this gateway. So it's been something I'm passionate about, and luckily I've been able to pursue that with my family until recently when we were purchased by a private equity venture called Precision Terminal Logistics, which we're now part of.
Congratulations.
So
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
really in your blood. I mean, literally, it's in your blood to be in supply chain and logistics. A lot of people say that when we've had a lot of guests on, but it's literally 5 generations, David. It's in your blood.
It is, and it's rail and ship or ocean. We were stevedores. I think we might have unloaded the ship that we came across the Atlantic on and never left the dock. Like everyone else swallowed a smart pill and, went and found a job at a bank. We stayed on the dock, and for right or for wrong, we've been involved in it from one generation to the next. So I'm encouraging my son to look at real estate or insurance or finance, but
Really
Yeah.
all
interesting.
joking aside, I can see it's in his blood too. So
Yeah.
it
Well,
is
so is there
genetic.
any Malcolm McLean like connections or anything like that? I mean, it
You
sounds
would
like
wish if there was, we'd be having this interview. I see an island in the background.
right. Touche.
We certainly are well aware of the folks over in Mobile and that contribution that Malcolm McLean and his family made to container shipping. Ours is more in the rail industry and more break bulk shipping, where the forefathers that I hear about and read about were engaged a lot of times in stevedoring companies trying something different, whether it was working around a union situation where there might have been some conflict on the docks or leveraging a railroad contract to facilitate ammunition movement in World War II. Is a lot of different history there. Most of the time, it seems like the commonality I've found in some of the documents that we have on this is solving the customer's need.
Yeah.
And sometimes the labor force may not allow you to do that, or there's some issues with the process preventing it, but you find a way to work around that to solve the customer's needs. And so that's the common theme, I guess, that's been passed down to me and what we're doing every day here at the Kearney Companies and Precision Terminal Logistics is very much centered around that same theme.
Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
great. I know I'm going to monopolize it. Higgins, you'll get to you can geek out a little bit and some of your history and background with Kearney.
Please.
But I wanted to, you mentioned New Orleans or Nolans. So when you think of supply chain, you typically picture, an LA, a Long Beach, or even a Savannah. Being from New Orleans, and you're rooted in that area, what do you think? What do you see New Orleans? How does it, with such a unique, what makes New Orleans such a unique and critical piece of the puzzle of supply chain?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's been, with containerization, New Orleans almost fell way behind other ports. And it became profound in really in 2000 onward. Mainly hanging on to break bulk cargoes longer than other ports, like Savannah, for instance, realized that containers were the future. The shipper liked it; it was cleaner, and they really gravitated towards containers, hook, line, and sinker, and built a strategic plan around containers. New Orleans really still catered to break bulk, still caters to bulk shipments. There's just a tremendous amount of bulk cargo that moves in and out of this gateway. So that legacy, while it has not benefited New Orleans per se in container volumes, there's still a need for those modes of transportation, and those really benefit commodities more so than retail or consumer packaged goods. So if you break the supply chain down into those different verticals, you still see that New Orleans has a tremendous amount of capacity 50-foot draft, and the ability to connect modes for much longer distance than some of the other East Coast ports, for instance, connecting ship to barge, and that barge can go all the way to Canada. You're moving 15 rail cars on one barge or 88 containers on one barge. That's a significant amount of reach for that amount of weight or capacity. So I think there's a future for New Orleans, but it's very much tied to commodities, and it will grow on the container front. It's just taken longer for us to catch up to Savannah and Charleston and some of the East Coast ports.
Well, I got to get this out of the way because we have known each other for a long time, but we haven't talked to each other in a very long time. So I met David when he was early in his career and was still with Maersk. And so tell me how you ended up. Did you go to Mercantile or did you go to HUD?
Yeah, I started at Mercantile, but my job was to work with Les Huddleston, the former owner of HUD, in integrating HUD into Mercantile and the solutions we had that were really focused in Asia overseas. And so it was, how do you tie this very entrepreneurial warehousing company in Downey, California, that has a laser focus on the customer, to sort of a larger, more global company like Mercantile Logistics at the time, which ultimately became Maersk Logistics,
Yep.
through the different changes that occurred there. And it was through that process that you and I got to meet, because you were an important customer at the time. And luckily I got assigned to Kevin for a week in Bentonville, and literally just shadowed him for 8 hours a day around the campus, and learned every single element of the import process, so we could understand how it is the sausage was made there at Walmart, and do everything we could to align with that. It was an amazing experience to do that.
Master class or a TED talk, right?
Yeah.
It was all of that. Yeah.
I'm not sure it was either one, but it was probably an experience, that's for sure. But you were instrumental in what we were doing in Suffolk, right?
Right. Yeah.
Then could you refresh my memory? Did you then go to Sumner and help us do that facility as well?
That's right. Yeah, I had all three. It really, Suffolk was where I actually implemented the facility. It was an old cocoa warehouse that we converted to GDSM. It was general department store merchandise. And the first ship showed up, I think it had 40 containers, and I'm thinking, this is easy. The next ship, and Kevin had warned me that this would happen, had 400 containers on it. I said, this is not as easy.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to, KP, you've got to understand. I was thinking about this last night in preparation for this time with David, and I don't want to monopolize, but when you came to Walmart in 2000, what did you come in 2001?
2002.
Yeah, you came in 2002, so it was late 2001, 2002. But before you came, like this facility that David's talking about was a warehouse with one door.
Walmart?
A transload facility, dude. It had one door. And so they rented the facility. It didn't even have a paved apron to park containers. It didn't have a paved lot. It had nothing. It was a gravel lot. Like the first container that got dropped over there sunk because it was wet. The landing
was Rodney
gear just
Scott part of this?
Rodney was part of it, but listen, they cut doors, and Tim Yotsko came out there, and I was showing he had just taken over his role. And this was we were going live in June of 1998. Tim took that role in January. Tim flies out there and he's like, show me this facility. He's used to the DSL 256 door cross dock out in Southgate, right? He comes out there and he sees open holes in corrugated steel. And he looks at me and he goes, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make
Well,
it.
look at you now.
And and we barely, with David and Freddie Lauer and Kevin Kendrick and Les Huddleston and Merrill Kamai, all of these people just jumping in, made this thing happen. And we went live, and Yasko then came back to me and he said, we're moving footwear and apparel out of California. You have 6 weeks to do the same thing that we just spent 6 months doing in Sumner.
That's right. And
6
then we
weeks.
found a better facility there.
Yeah, we got a better facility. It had doors, it had doors and a
and
paved
an
lot.
apron.
So I just wanted to say, like, David, not only did he get thrown into the fire, but he got, I mean, like right in the middle of the coals, man, because I was sweating this thing. And this was the first part of our port diversification program, is we just barely had any. It was all LA and a little bit into Savannah. And this was the major initiative of our port diversification program. And David was incredibly instrumental. And I think what an amazing time for you. It was an amazing time for me.
Yeah.
But to be around people like Les Huddleston and Merrill Kamai and God, what was he? White was his last name.
Tommy White was
Tommy
our
White
manager, and Fred
Yeah,
Lauer
I mean,
was instrumental.
Mr. Moeller, Maris McKinney Moeller, came to the facility and toured the facility with me when there was still cotton in it, and we were nowhere. And he's just like, he spent the afternoon with us all in Suffolk, Virginia. And it was just an amazing time. And that team just went on to do amazing things. So, kudos to you, David. I've always wondered like how life was for you, because, I saw you on LinkedIn. We stayed connected. And I see that you kind of got some, you still got the hair, but back then it was, it was 23, 24-year-old college hair.
Yeah,
What I
I
would
got rid
call
of
it.
the bowl cut finally.
Well, I got rid of all of it. So
Yeah, Higgins, take
you
that hat
came
off.
out better than me. So anyway, I just had to jump in there. I got all of that out of the way so we can keep going.
Great. It was a great experience. And anytime you can see it through the customer's eyes like that, and have a customer put their trust in you the way you did, but that's what opened up all the doors, and I think there was enough trust between that you knew
Yeah.
we wouldn't let you down.
Yeah.
At the same time, we had confidence that you believed in us, and when that happens, magic can happen. So
Yeah,
no
that's
doubt.
exactly right. And it goes back to something that Parkerson and I talk about all the time, is relationships matter, right? And I trusted Kevin Kendrick and Michael Christensen and Mike Noon and all these people that led us down this road with this new company that Mercantile had acquired. And then trust was quickly established with all of you guys. And it was a shared effort, because it was, you guys became successful as well.
Yeah,
And
it really,
yeah, made
the
me
reward
look like a
was,
hero,
shared
and it paid off
mutually.
for you guys.
No question.
Well, David, again, I think Higgins is like the Kevin Bacon of supply chain. 6 degrees
That's
of,
very true.
it all leads back to him somehow, some way. Maybe I should be asking him if he has Malcolm McLean, in your blood or DNA.
Probably does.
Right? It somehow it
I
always
agree.
it gets back.
I got the book.
Well, listen, David, I want to get into a little bit. You talked about the Kearney Companies. You mentioned a recent acquisition and all. I want to talk a little about like what's the hardest part of like handing over, if that's the right phrasing, handing over some of the control while keeping the family DNA alive in the business.
Yeah, it's tough. I will tell you, when you run a company, whether it's family owned or just a smaller company, and then you become a part of something larger, you do have to learn to give up some control. A lot of it might be in finance or HR areas where it's probably a relief to some degree to give up some of that control. So all the decision making isn't solely on your shoulders. Um, but parts of it, specifically for me, the hardest part is the customer relationship. Not allowing someone else maybe to manage that customer without your direct engagement all the time. So what I've tried to do, honestly, through the last 3 years since we were acquired, is really not uh, give up I've given up maybe control of the relationship, but I still stay engaged almost weekly with those same customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the essence isn't lost. And then I can quickly see if something's going, the wrong direction and try to subtly maybe redirect. So the key though is that others within the organization are starting to learn and adapt to that new role that they also have. Um, so yeah, I've had to learn to give up some operational control. I now report to a board of directors, not just to my father. And there's great value that has come from that. I will say I'm blessed to have a board of directors of similarly minded folks that understand the customer need, and really that's where our focus should be. And so it's been a whirlwind the last 3 years, but it's been a really exciting time for me personally and my own career growth.
That's great. So where do you see the most value for shippers in the next 5 years by this partnership?
Yeah, and Kearney Companies now being owned by Precision Terminal Logistics, it gives us access to capital. Precision Terminal Logistics is a company that was formed by Anacostia Rail Holdings, which is a short line railroad holding company, and Brown Brothers Harriman Bank, which is a commodity bank. It's been around for many, many generations that service the commodity finance world. They have a private equity arm, and with Anacostia and Brown Brothers, Precision has access to capital for big projects that could be infrastructure investments in the leases that we have, for instance. So, you know, we would have struggled to sign more than a 3-year lease with the Port of New Orleans, for instance, because of the commitment that required. Now, with Precision, we can look at 10-year leases with multiple renewal options. So we start getting much longer term in our approach to the real estate or to the underlying infrastructure, like the rail infrastructure that we work with every day. And so then we can start to invest in that because our lease has such a term to it that it's now investable. Before that, a 3-year lease, any capital you put in is more or less lost. So um, I think that's the biggest benefit. It really gives us a longer term uh, glide path with which we can do things for the infrastructure that we use to support our customers.
So on the commodity side, you mentioned a couple of times handling bulk agri, paper. You've seen, I'm sure, a lot of shifts in the commodities, in the 20 plus years you've been doing this. What's changing the fastest?
The right now, with tariffs and everything going on with trade, it's just almost so hard to predict. I've never seen it this tricky in terms of trying to guess where it might be tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's been challenging because really we had some consistency in the prior years that we could build on. So that's put a bit of uh, a headwind on us. The thing that I think has changed the most is really some degree shifting from break bulk to container. Of course, that's a trend that's probably played itself out now. The commodities that have converted from break bulk, like rolled paper, for instance, that are containerized, I think it's doubtful they'll go back to break bulk unless we have hiccups in the supply chain, like after COVID, for instance. You started to see break bulk creep back in, like with coffee, rolled paper, big, bulky products, but it was just because there was malfunctioning in the container space. That's all settled back out. So we kind of reached a normal equilibrium in the container supply chains, and things have settled back down. Um, you know, for the going forward, I think the commodities that traditionally move bulk and traditionally move break bulk kind of stay in those lanes. um, Big question is what happens with these Chinese vessels and the tax that they might have to pay
Yeah.
on a port call.
Hmm.
You know, that's going to affect container ships, but it also affects bulk and break bulk. And that's an unusual anomaly to sort of plan around. But supply chain managers are having to think about that, because it in the end, it becomes a cost per widget or cost per ton, whatever you're looking at.
And there hasn't been a huge spotlight on that part of it, because when people think about the penalty for a Chinese-owned ship, I mean, for me, I automatically think container ship, but
You're right, Kevin.
you
Yep.
know, there's not a lot of discussion around how that affects the break bulks.
Right. And so many ships are, I think it's if the ship was made in China that it's based on where the hull was manufactured. So it doesn't matter where it's flagged.
Yep, that's right.
There's no real escaping this thing unless there's some wrinkle that gets put in at the 11th hour. But you know, there's a lot of hulls out there that were made in China, and that effectively they'll be taxed when they come to port.
That's a great point. Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy.
so when we think about and talk about changes, you have to, and when it's changing fast, you have to somehow bring into the conversation technology and AI. Talk to the audience a little bit about that and precision logistics usage of that, and maybe what's overhyped in the logistics area in that regard.
That's a great question and something I think about all the time. You know, AI is overhyped. One example I would say is like blockchain. You know, everyone was on this mission to figure out how blockchain was going to work. And, Kevin, back to where you and I crossed paths originally, we spent a lot of time interfacing Walmart's system with our deconsolidation system. We built systems around this process, and we created our own little version of blockchain. And it was, it's EDI. It's not very sophisticated, but it enabled a lot of business to business communication that automated processes that were otherwise pick up the phone or send an email and was totally manual. It could now be done in your system and automatically updated in ours and vice versa. Um, Even to this day, I'm still seeing a lot of our customers when we get to automation and integrating systems, we're using the same exact process we were 20 years ago. It hasn't evolved into this just stick all your data out there in the open cloud and things will magically interface. I still think from a security and a real reliability standpoint that's not there yet. AI for us really is around automation in trucks, truck driving, trying to, I think, solve for eliminating risk where we can, whether that risk is employee safety, anything we can do certainly to try and eliminate, safety issues where they may be an employee on a forklift. If we can drive that forklift remotely and that eliminates risk, that's worth looking at. Truck driving and automated trucks, I like that in reaction to some of the activity that's going on in the litigious society that we live in, where people are just suing you for everything and under the sun. And our insurance renewals are getting to the point where if we don't start looking at technology, we won't be insurable. I mean, and I do think that there's very positive, developments from technology. In I'll give you an example. We use camera systems now that monitor the driver forward facing to the road, but looking at the driver as he or she operates the vehicle, and it sees if they don't have their seatbelt, if they're nodding off, they pick up a cell phone. It allows us to coach them. That's step one. Step two becomes, all right, with this same type of technology, when does the truck start driving itself? And it might not be local dray, but certainly in our yard behind our fence, we could move to that point. So I do think that that's an area we're really focused on with the drayage and yard switching activity that we have at all of our facilities, 24 hours a day.
How about from an appointment system at the terminals and things like that, David? Do you see that there's an opportunity for some collaboration in working with people like you in the terminals on optimizing those drivers in and out of the terminal based on where they actually have to go and making that freight available at the terminal at a different time instead of just like first come, first serve kind of appointment thing? Do you see an opportunity there?
Yeah, really do. There's absolutely. And I think the Port of New Orleans had one of the first automated terminal appointment systems in the country, believe it or not. That was about 15 years ago. And it sort of played its way out there. One of the terminal operators is implementing a second generation appointment system right now. There's been some frustration with sort of how that system's even flowing drivers through the terminal, because it will spin you out unless you're within the exact window they've given you for that appointment. And so the drivers and the dispatchers are really having to adjust to this new reality. It puts a lot of work on the dispatchers. There's no doubt. There's a lot of responsibility now, because if they miss a beat, they might have 10 drivers pulling in that all their appointments are bad. But if we can sort of get through the kinks on this, you've got a situation where the terminal is even flowing, which means there's less delay in the terminal. Now, that doesn't mean it's pushing the delay out of the terminal, but businesses will adapt their processes around that appointment system. I think it's worth seeing how that performs. It's a technology that's readily available for other terminal operators to implement if it works. So it's sort of a guinea pig. We're a small enough gateway here in New Orleans to where it's probably a good place to beta test something like that.
Yep.
Before trying to do it in New York or LA, where if the wheels come off, you take a month to recover. So, it's interesting to see how it has even flowed the volume, that because throughout the course of a day, there's always peaks and valleys. With the even flow model, it tends to smooth that out a little bit.
Yeah.
And we are capturing the data to see if we have net benefit on turns per driver per day. That's the metrics that we really look at. And hopefully at the end we see more turns per driver that makes us more competitive, right? The bigger picture.
100%.
As a reminder, today's episode is brought to you by the Port of New Orleans, a modern gateway for global trade with direct access to river, rail, and road.
The Port of New Orleans is the only U.S. seaport served by all 6 Class 1 railroads, giving shippers a real edge when it comes to inland reach and multimodal connections.
From moving containers and break bulk cargo to serving as a major cruise hub, the Port of New Orleans is helping shape the future of global logistics right from the heart of the Gulf.
And a big thanks to the Port of New Orleans for sponsoring this episode and for the critical role they play in keeping goods and people moving. Let's get to it. So we've talked a little bit about, the technology and the AI. Let's go to the other side of it, the people side of logistics, and maybe attracting and retaining talent in this maritime logistics side. So, David, what's harder, convincing a customer to trust your network or convincing young talent to join this crazy industry?
It's the second. It's really tough recruiting folks, especially younger folks. They I think just look at the opportunity different than maybe than I did coming out of college. And so we've got to make the job interesting, and technology can help with that. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of sort of grunt work that comes with a job, and we've all done it. I know Kevin 1 and Kevin 2, you've both been through it, and we're probably all the better for having gone.
We survived. We're doing a podcast. We're surviving.
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't change a thing about that either.
Well, I would.
Yeah. And well,
It's funny though, the grunt work, that I did, really, and it was spending an entire week at a customer's location where you were just did whatever the customer wanted for that entire week. But that was what really gave you the experience you need to understand the whole
yeah,
process from
right.
the minute the container's loaded in Asia, or the minute something's ordered in Asia, to the minute it's delivered at the store. If you don't see the process from A to Z, you don't understand why it's so important that you get the distribution right or whatever when it hits the US. And so, great experience there. And I think it's a good analogy for some of the sort of underlying hard work that we've got to convince the next generation to not only put up with, but almost embrace, because there's a lot of very positive things that come from putting in the extra work. And
Mm.
it's hard though to recruit folks to this industry. I've found that getting customers to trust our network is a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
So
for the
what
audience, just for clarity, I'm Kevin 1 and that's Kevin 2. But anyway, I digress. So what kind of qualities would you look for in the next generation of leaders?
Really, dependability is a big thing. Someone that's shows up and willing to learn, really willing to listen, um, even if they disagree with maybe uh, how you get to the end result. Um, it's good that they learn that that's one way, and then, but stick with it to come back and design a better way. Um, I think a lot of times you have folks starting a new job and they instantly assume they know the answer without going through the process as it is one time at least, and then take it from there. And so, um, dependability is a big issue though, where you have folks say they show up and they're not paying attention or really getting engaged in learning the whole job. And so I think that's something we look for. We try to find folks that are really willing to learn, especially in those first early years of their career.
well, I think that David, you touched on it. Um, we always believe that it was important. I've always believed that it was important to understand the process so that I could understand my decisions. And I would just encourage anybody who's considering getting into any field, but specifically this field. We've said it before, you need to understand everything. You need to spend time with the buyer. You need to spend time with the finance group. You need to spend time with the warehouse group, with the store group, with everybody, so that you can understand, if I make this decision that might be good for my division, how does it affect everybody else? And so I really appreciate what you said there. It's like, it's that willingness to really listen and dive in and learn all the different disciplines. And that's why I think it was, I always felt it was beneficial for you to spend a week with us, or anybody to come spend a week with us, because you understand now. You go back to your shop and you understand how that decision affects us, or affects your customer.
I remember burning through notepads, taking notes, and then going back to the hotel room and trying to digest those notes into an email to my bosses to try then to explain what I had learned from Kevin and the whole team there, because I felt it was my job to learn it and understand it, and then train or communicate that back to headquarters, so to speak. And so, um, that's that in a nutshell right now. If you can do that, if you can spend time learning a process and then communicate to others and teach them that same process, I think things can really open up
Yeah,
for you. And
I
any
agree.
it could be anything. It could be if you serve on a board at a church, understanding the whole process behind not just the sermon or the what happens in the church on Sunday. It's what happens in the church the 6 other days of the year.
That's so
Yep.
So
good. Yep.
Bingo. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, David. So if we're sitting down 10 years from now, there's no telling what Higgins is going to be doing, but 10 years from now, what do you hope Kearney and Precision Logistics, what does that story look like?
I really hope that we're still kind of an independent, standalone logistics company with individual brand identity where that brand fits, like New Orleans, the Kearney Companies Inc. still resonates to the shippers that we work with, rather than just seeing it all kind of get folded into one. Um, I also like to think that we're still doing things that are very customer centric. So if a customer says, "Look, we want an operation in Detroit, and we want it for this commodity, and here's the material handling needs that we have," I still hope that we're helping solve those very specific customer needs, because that's the sticky relationship where it boils down to more than just emails and some system somewhere. That's where, to Kevin's point earlier, relationships really matter. There might be some sticky issues that pop up from time to time, and that's where you rely on your relationships. You rely on your ability to communicate. I hope that we're still engaged at that level of very specific customer solutions. That's what gets me excited. I know our current board of directors is very focused on helping me develop that. So
I love that, and I think having that brand identity that your customers have for a long time have identified with goes a long way. So I hope that's the case for you guys as well. So you mentioned a little bit earlier, your son has some interest in the business. Do you anticipate that he's going to join, or you gonna tell him he needs to go be a lawyer or something?
a combination of both. I'll tell him to be a lawyer, and yes, he will want to join. I do
I
think
like that.
I see both in my son and daughter an interest in what I do. They
Yeah.
hear some of the crazy stories when I come home, and we live close enough to the Mississippi River where if they're playing soccer in the background, either a train is going by or there's a massive bulk carrier coming up the river to a
Yeah.
grain elevator. They live it, and
It's their
that's one of the great
DNA,
things about
David.
New Orleans is you can't miss it. If it's so ingrained in the city. It's really profound in that way. And one of the things when Precision bought us, we had one of these conference calls where we're talking about the acquisition, and things were getting a little sticky, and we're trying to move the process along, and I told the buyers, the owners, that one of the things, my son came, and he was younger at the time, but he burst into tears and said, "Dad, if they buy your company, whose flag is going to fly on the flagpole outside? We have an American flag, and then under it has our logo."
Yeah.
And he was in tears. And so when I told this to the new owners, they said, "Well, your flag's going to stay." So
That's awesome.
hopefully that remains the case. But I think he's very interested in global logistics, and he sees the places I've traveled and the people that I've met. And I've take my kids on these insurance meetings sometimes. It could be a customer meeting. I had my son join me in Omaha. It just happened to be with the College World Series. That
Ye-
might have had something to
Oh,
do
there
with
you
it.
go.
Yeah. There you
Okay.
go.
He,
That's pretty good
he
sales
sat in
tactic.
on
I
a
like that.
conference. Yeah, he had to listen to me speak at a grain conference. But I mean, those are the kind of things I wish I could do more of it. And I think it's something we should almost encourage, where you'd expect to see kids at a customer meeting or a conference, because how else are they going to learn? You know,
Yeah.
it isn't
100%.
from TikTok and the social media websites. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's for darn sure. I think KP and I probably both. I know I did. I took my daughter to work with me on certain days, and back then we were still working. We got one Saturday a month that we didn't have to go in, And so she went to a lot of Saturday morning meetings with me and hung out and met a lot of really cool people, really special people. So, yeah, I love to see that too.
I always say I brought it home enough. I didn't need to take them to work. I brought it to them.
They
But
already
I'm
knew.
just joking. I really
Yeah.
joke. But all right, David. So barge, rail, or truck? What's the most underrated mode?
It's a great question, and I think about it all the time. But I'd say barge. It is amazingly efficient. The environmental impact of using barge versus other modes is significantly greater, just because of the sheer volume you can move, with one tugboat versus multiple trains or multiple trucks. Um, and I think there's a lot of capacity there that's just unused. You know, the barge takes longer, but if you can program your supply chain around it, there's a lot of benefit there. So I'd say that's the one that I've got my eye on, where there's a lot of upside to it, and that is specific to certain markets. New Orleans being one of them.
One of my last questions I always ask, our guests is, if you weren't in logistics, what would you be doing? But it's in your blood. There's no way that you could not be in logistics. But hypothetically, what would you be doing?
I mean, I think you're right. I don't know that I could ever separate, but I was close to going down the corporate finance world, and getting into more of a banking. I could see tangentially being in insurance, whether it's marine, inland marine insurance, or doing something in finance that's related to commodities, where there's still a logistics tangent to it. That I would be happy in that, as long as there was some link to the transportation and logistics world.
That's not what I would have said. You should ask me that question. What would David be doing? Because if I go back to like 1998, I would say he's going to be a model or an actor. I mean,
You're right. I did live in LA for a little while, and people would ask me what I did. And the minute I said logistics, they would stop talking to me. So
yeah. See, should have told
I
him
had to lie and say I was in the business.
You're in the model. You're a model or
Right.
an actor there, buddy. That's what you should have done. Well, I do have to do this, KP, before you get off, and I'm going to send this to you guys, and I'll post it on the episode. But just so you know, I do have pictures, and that's the side of the Suffolk transload facility with no doors before they cut the doors.
Okay, that's
That is
amazing. But
crazy.
what's even more
Yeah.
amazing is that you still have that picture and it's on your phone.
Yeah. And
Why?
and look here. That's in Suffolk. That's me and Mr. Moeller.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That
So-
was early on in the game, and then the Regina Maersk called Norfolk because we had really, it was added to the playlist, if you will, on their North American debut because of what we were working on there. So quite a story.
Yeah. I have a picture of me and Tommy Thompson, Kevin Kendrick, with the governor of Virginia and Clark Brown when Clark was president of Mercantile. So
Yeah, and then he ran BTT trucking also.
yeah, 100%.
See, 6 degrees of separation. I'm telling you, you're the
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon of supply chain. I promise you.
I tell you what, we could spend a lot of time with David because I would love to catch up, and we do need to catch up. We should catch up sometime and get caught up, because you weren't. I mean, I think you were single, and there's young in the industry. I would love to just catch up and spend some time with you.
It sounds like there's a lot of
Anytime,
good stories
Kevin.
that might potentially could be there, but that gets a really good segue to kind of the last portion of, we've had a couple of guests, Janine and Amanda from New Orleans. They've given us great tips on where to go eat. So, Higgins, you get down there and visit with David, and reminiscing on some of these stories. David, where would you go eat? Where's your favorite spot?
It's a very hard question to answer because
Give us your
First,
top
you have to pick
three.
what neighborhood to eat in, and then do you want a hole in the wall, which I would recommend because the food's always better at a hole in the wall.
Yep.
But if you're in the French Quarter, you got to go to one of the classics like Arnaud's or Galatoire's at least once in your life. Take a Friday afternoon, don't clear the deck and just go get immersed in the French Quarter. It's
I
amazing.
love your thought process. It's like a progressive dinner, right? It's like
Right.
you go and you do appetizer this place, you stumble into the next place and you get a drink. You go to the next place and you have lunch, and then you have right, and then you have a mid-afternoon snack, and you just stay in the French Quarter and hit all of them. I love that.
Less is more. You will be perfectly equipped. Lunch usually takes a few hours, and then you go into Lafitte's blacksmith shop or one of the old haunts there on Bourbon Street, and it's just magical. I did that recently with my wife and some other couples, and we you feel like you go back a couple hundred years. You're thinking about pirates and Jean Lafitte and all the crazy stuff that happened there. But then there's other great neighborhoods in New Orleans. A lot of people don't venture out into, and so uptown New Orleans, right by the Mississippi River, there's some fabulous restaurants that are Clancy's is a great restaurant that I highly recommend. You can hear the trains going by and see the ships going by and enjoy a great meal.
That sounds like a great place to do like a remote podcast from, right, Higgins?
I think
Great
it's a
idea.
great idea.
Clancy's. I
I'm
heard
not
it.
being paid by Clancy's to say that. It's just a good
Not yet.
good restaurant. But there's others. I'll get you a list for sure.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That'd be great. All right. So do you have a hidden talent or a hobby that would surprise people? Because all your friends and family are going to listen to this podcast. So what's the hidden talent?
Will. The best talent. I remember this, Kevin, because I can shoot skeet, sporting clays, and we ended up at some event in Missouri, and I think it was one of your carriers had hosted us, like a carrier
Probably
event
in Southwest Missouri, Higgins.
Yeah, 100% Southwest Missouri, but
it was, and so you're there and I'm there, and I think we got Les Huddleston to join us somehow. We got him out of California, and there was a skeet shoot, and I ended up shooting whatever the right number was and won a shotgun. And I'll never forget that. I think I still have that shotgun lying around somewhere. But
I forgot all about
it.
that.
It was a beauty. So that's what I love to shoot sporting clays. I think that's something that's like relaxing to me to get out there and shoot a little bit. Kind of like playing golf, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
All right, Higgins, ask the movie question.
All right. So I generally try to ask this question. If you could pick the best supply chain movie, what would it be?
And you can't say Castaway.
Yeah.
That did pop into my mind.
Nope. Next.
I don't know. I thought you were going to ask me which book I read, because I got some good
give
ones
us a book.
there.
Yeah, while you think about the movie, and it can't be plane, trains, and automobiles either.
Right.
So not that one.
The book was The Fish That Swallowed the Whale, which is a story about Sam Zamuri, who is legendary in New Orleans, having started the banana trade, which ultimately led to Great White Fleet as we know it today, and was part of Chiquita Banana, United Fruit Company, which was based here in New Orleans and moved to Cincinnati, I believe, at some point. But it's a fabulous story. It's a really well-written book, and I highly recommend it. It's The Fish That Swallowed the Whale.
I need to read that. Yeah, the Great White
It's short
Fleet.
too for those of us that
Well, if it's got pictures in it, that's right up his alley.
it might have a picture. It does have pictures, but it starts
great.
with Sam Zamuri handing out bananas out of a boxcar, leaving New Orleans, going to Chicago, and he would give out the bananas that had started to go ripe, because he could get a load of ripe bananas. The wholesalers wanted to get rid of them, so he was getting them at a discount and then selling them and making money just riding a boxcar up and down. peddling bananas. But it turns out he became a legend, and the book has a lot of good analogies on starting very small and how you scale it from there. And just a story, incredible story. So, I don't know. For the movie, I have to go with maybe like Saving Private Ryan or something like that. I love World War II history and
That's
the
a
whole
great one.
mobilization that occurred in our country and overseas. You
That's
think about the
logistics.
logistics behind all that,
Yes.
not just landing on the beach and getting in there, but everything that went behind it to get to the next stage. That are like
Great
Band of
answer.
Brothers.
Yes.
Those movies fascinate me.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
great choice.
good,
Yeah,
good,
much
good
more
movie.
educated than me, like Smoking a Bandit, right? We got to get to Texarkana and back
That's a
28
good one.
hours.
Yeah.
Well, listen, David, this has been, such a treat to hear from. I'll say it. I think, you and your family are legends in the supply chain. So it's been a real treat for us to have you to hear about your career, the insights, your leadership style. We've thoroughly enjoyed this. I know our listeners have too. So thanks so much for joining us on Kev Talks.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be with you guys, and can't wait to catch up down the road.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
can't either.
Yep.
Good to see you, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, David.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.